How's it going, everybody? It is November 26, 2013, and this is the return of the MMA Podcast. We took last week off because of some technical difficulties in Studio 15, but that just means we got twice the stuff to talk about. We are going to briefly touch on UFC 167. We haven't done an MMA podcast since then, but Ross, Allen, and myself were all there. There in person to watch a slew of great fights. Watching Woodley, Lawler, Evans, and George St-Pierre all coming out on top, the final one being a little bit of an issue. We're also going to break down the tough finale, the week in mixed martial arts, the 2 weeks in mixed martial arts. I'm done pussyfooting around. Let's do this shit.
We did it, mama. We did it for the love of the game. We did it, mama. I did it for.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
I love that Lenny Hart drop. God damn it. Welcome to the MMA Podcast. Like I said, it's November 26th, Thanksgiving week, I hope in a couple days. You're cutting turkey with loved ones, or at least just calling up a friend, a family member, tell them you're thankful for it. And this is the only serious moment of the show. Like I said, we have 2 weeks of shit to break down. We were in Vegas for UFC 167. That was absolutely nuts. It was really, really fun seeing everyone on Team Darkside, splitting a room with me, Ross, and Allen. Things got a little sexual. But honestly, we would go about the entire story, but we actually broke it down on the Word on the Street podcast, the November 19th version of the the Word on the Street podcast. So go and look that up on the YouTubes if you want to listen to all of the high jinks we got into, seeing prostitutes at 3 a.m. It was very fun. Also a shout out to all of our friends who couldn't make it tonight. Our boy Ramses at the Aunt Jimmy Show. Our friend Alan, Westlin Eagle AH. Our boy Chris, C. Lowenstein, J _ Jeans, at MMA Mental, at Sweet Pappy Jones, our boy P Money, and everybody else. You can follow us at the MMA Podcast. We really, really appreciate you listening in. Without further ado, we got 2 people on the show tonight with me. The usual suspects, Ross and Yao. Really quick, Yao, where do we find you? And if you want to clue us in, who are you going to be fighting? Not this weekend, but next weekend. It's going to be a doozy.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Yao_the truth, YAO_the truth. I am fighting Alan Hamilton, December 7th, live from the Aviator Sports Arena in Brooklyn, New York.
You said, like you were going to say something else. Do you have anything else to say? No,
I'm sorry.
Word. For a second there, I had a little mini freak out because I mentioned the technical problems. My laptop, it is a pretty good one. I got it 3 years ago. It's got like a decent processor or whatever, but it overheats so much. Literally, huge shout out to Ross, who we will introduce in a second, because for some reason, literally, this laptop has become such a piece of shit. If I try to watch a video on it, it overheats and turns off. And this is like I don't mean I'll put on a Netflix movie and an hour 15 in, it shuts down. I mean a YouTube video, like 30 seconds in, it'll just crash. And I also can't run Ustream, which is great. So shout out to Ross Finkelstein for taking care of the Ustream side of things tonight. Like I mentioned, he is the best Jew in the business. Ross Finkelstein, ladies and gentlemen, he is your champion. What's going on?
What's going on, Jake? Many things are going on here on Long Island, New York. Many things are happening around the world today. The Jew is back. The Jew is here. The Jew is on the MMA podcast. I got my belt with me. I got my pride with me. I got my game with me. I am running shit here tonight, sort of. I'm producing the show. I'm bringing it to Ustream. I'm making the recording. I'm not dropping sounds, but I am still here. I am dropping my own sound drops. Jake, I am going to sue you. You use ladies and gentlemen. That is not cool. I'm still here. I'm ready to do things tonight. It's going to be a great podcast. I cannot wait. I think we just lost Jake, actually. We did lose Jake, so I'm going to do a switcheroo here. Yeah, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
All right. Well, I am taking over the MMA podcast right now. It's a little weird, but here I am, ladies and gentlemen. The Jew is here. I'm getting a couple texts from Jake. This is not supposed to happen live on the show, but we'll get things fixed right now. I think Jake actually, he mentioned it before at the start of the show that he's been having a lot of technical issues, and we're trying to help him out here. So if shit like this happens throughout the podcast, just kind of ignore it. We'll constantly stay live. I'm not going to have any technical issues, so we will stay live. I'm going to get Jake back on the line, and he's going to host his own show because this is his own show. I'm going to send him a text here. Yeah, do you have anything that you want to say, anything you want to talk about? Actually, let me start off. While we wait for Jake, I just want to announce that me and Yao are actually going to UFC 169. We have seats basically in the center of the arena. We're going to be right there, right in front of the cage. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome, that card. What do you think, Yao? What, you want to tell anyone about this?
Yeah, this will be my second live UFC event. Cruz and Barao, Aldo, and what is this guy's name? Oh my God. Lamas, yes, Ricardo Lamas. Alistair Overeem versus Frank Mir, and plenty more to come. It's going to be awesome. They cut a promo just recently. It's going to be amazing. Very, very good fights. That's all I got.
Yeah, they've been showing the tickets on sale video. I mean, we were talking about this off the call before, and like Yao said, it's awesome because you see those two title fights, and then they show Mir and Overeem, and it really, really, really gets you pumped. So I'm excited to see this card. I think this is going to be one of the best cards of 2014. I think it's a great way to do that joint thing with the UFC and Fox and the Super Bowl weekend. I think it's going to be insane. The atmosphere in New Jersey is going to be insane. The crazy part is, though, because it's in New Jersey and you got the Super Bowl the next day, all the hotels jacked up the prices, so no one can really come into town if they want to see this MMA event because every hotel is like $550. Jake is back on the line with us, ladies and gentlemen. Jake, are you there?
Dude, I used to wonder why people would murder themselves and commit suicide. And, that was, man, what would drive a person to end their own life? After experiencing what I have with this HP laptop, I fucking get it, dude.
That's the darkest thing ever said on Jake's show. Jake is now back, though. I thank you all for this little takeover, this little intermission. I'm going to throw it back to Jake because it is Jake's show. Jake, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, I like that delay of my screen turning off right when I went to unmute myself, pointing toward being a very smooth show tonight, trying to get things back up on my laptop. In the meantime, this has kind of disjointed things, but you know what? We will move on. We will move to UFC 167. And it was a hell of a card, man. The UFC really aimed to put on a good card for their 20th anniversary. But at the same time, it happened like a week and a half ago. So I don't want to talk about it too in depth because you guys have heard people talk about it ad nauseum. I'll go ahead and lump the Tim Elliott versus Ali Bagatunov fight in with the prelims. But out of all of the Facebook prelims, you had Pettis winning, you had Vellante winning, Jason High winning. Off of the Fox Sports 1 card, you had Perez, Cerrone, Story, and one other fight I'm not remembering, and of course the Ali Bagatuna fight. Which fight stood out to you? Just, whether it was a really exciting fight, whether you think the winner has a bright future. What did you think about those prelims?
I thought the prelims were. I'm getting an echo. If I don't know who it is, it's gone now. But I thought the prelims were entertaining. We had a lot of decisions on the prelims. That's the weird part, but yet it was still very entertaining. Rick's story, like Brian Ebersol said, he's a brick. He just comes forward, he throws punches, he does not care. He is an animal. So he put on quite the show, and he's so inconsistent. I want to see him step it up and really just go on a streak. He was on a great streak. He won 6 in a row, and then he's just been inconsistent since. So I really hope he can get back to that streak, and I believe training at TriStar really will help him out there. Donald Cerrone is another guy who's incredibly inconsistent, but when he performs, man, does he perform. He dominated a guy who I believe is one of the best in the world in Evan Dunham. Evan Dunham's very well-rounded, and not only did he outstrike him, but he outgrappled him, which is an incredible feat because Evan Dunham is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt and a high-level one at that. So to submit a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt the way he did with the triangle choke off his back, it's a very impressive thing to do. So all the props to Donald Cerrone. Hopefully he can go on a streak like Rick's story, but inconsistency really is the story of Cerrone and Story, no pun intended. Talis Ladies, a guy who I believe is the most underrated fighter in the UFC's middleweight division and possibly in the UFC. The guy is a very good grappler. He's very well-rounded, but his grappling is so strong. He's a big guy. He's 22-4. He doesn't get the credit he deserves, and he's gone on a nice little run here, and I think he's going to go on a nice little run here in the UFC, and we may see him in that title talk again. And then the other fight that was on there, Eric Perez. I love Eric Perez. He's young. He's ferocious. He has all the skills, and he's only getting better. And to do what he's doing to these guys at 23, 24 years old, and knowing that he's going to get better, this is a guy who's going to compete for the title one day. Not relatively soon, but one day he will compete for the title. So I look forward to seeing Eric Perez compete for that belt one day because I believe he can truly win that belt. Edwin Figueroa's tough, and he just beat the brakes off of him. He powerbombed him, which was awesome. He outstruck him. He outgrappled him. It was a tremendous performance by Eric Perez. All the credit to the guys on the prelims. They really set the stage for this 20th anniversary show.
Yao, your thoughts?
Yeah, the one fight that really stuck out to me was the Donald Cerrone fight. I really enjoyed watching Donald striking. He was using a lot of knees to the body, which I really enjoyed. That's a very underused strike in MMA, and he used it very, very well. I don't think that Evan Dunham was expecting that. Later in the fight, he was trying to avoid it, but wasn't able to, and then he fell into that submission. So that's the one fight that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, that was an awesome, awesome, awesome fight. Jake, are you there?
You guys done? Yeah, my shit overheated again, which is really awesome. Tried to bring it back, but I guess I'll be doing the first show exclusively off of my phone. Again, shout out to Ross for doing all this. I'm probably going to jump off a tall building when this is all through because my laptop is effectively dead. Well, I guess after the prelims, that brings us to the main card. We skipped Elliott versus Bagatuna. But Koscheck Woodley, that was a really even fight as far as what people thought was going to happen as far as the line in Vegas. We actually bumped into Woodley a bunch of times. I think dude was stalking me. But Woodley, look, I mean, this is another guy who like Cerrone might not be the model of being a consistent fighter, but damn, when he turns it on, he looks good. And he beat the brakes off of Josh Koscheck. What do you think I mean, the fight was pretty cut and dry, but what do you think about Woodley moving forward? Do you think he has the tools to fight for a title?
I guess I'll start again. Yeah, I'd say he does. I think he's well-rounded, he's strong, he hits hard, and he's young. I think if he can lose a little bit of muscle mass and work on his cardio a little bit, he will be just an absolute powerhouse. And I think right now he's already a powerhouse. He's going to pose a lot of problems for those guys in that division. So definitely I think he's a future title contender.
Yeah, Tyron Woodley is like one of the best fighters in the UFC, to be honest. And, even in the welterweight division, I definitely think he can win the title. I think he beats everyone at 170 except George St-Pierre. That's not to say he can't beat him, but I'd like to see him tighten up his defense just a little bit more. He extends himself a little bit when he's throwing punches. Koscheck was able to catch him a couple times, and if he can tighten up his defense a little bit more, I definitely think he fights and wins the title.
Damn, yeah. I mean, welterweight is so stacked. Not only with the guys currently there, with Condit, Brown, Lawler, Hendricks, George, but with dudes coming up like Brandon Thatch, Hung Gyu Lim. Shout out to Allen. I know he has a boner for him. But yeah, it's a tough division. Saying that, Woodley, he's young. He's still getting better. He has that base of wrestling, which is always good to have. And I don't know about him winning the title in the next year or two, but he'll be around for a long time. We're going to hear the name Tyron Woodley for years and years to come. Let's move on, I guess, to the co-main event. We had Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. One thing that I thought was kind of strange, I probably should have expected it, but I didn't. The MGM, that was a pro TriStar, pro Canada crowd. I think 40% of the people who bought tickets were from Canada. And that crowd went craziest for GSP and Rory. Obviously, they weren't that psyched to see Rory lose a decision, but Robbie deserved to win out there. And God, these people talk about Jackson's fighters being boring. Before Rory joined TriStar, he was a monster, and now he's a point fighter, and that really bums me out. Hopefully, he changes up his style a little bit, but you'll never see someone from TriStar throw a big combo, throw a knockout punch, because they're point fighters. And I think both in this fight and in the main event, you kind of learn the downside of point fighting when someone is really going to bring the fight to you. Lawler wins. Lawler, we'll talk about the GSP nonsense in a little bit, but Lawler might be closer to a title shot than any of us imagined just a year or two ago. What did you think about him winning the split decision over Rory Mack?
It was glorious. It was a great moment. It was my favorite moment of the night. That night, I was there for the card, like you mentioned before. You were there for the card. Alan was there for the card. A couple of our friends were there for the card. And that was my favorite moment. Seeing Robbie Lawler turn his career around has been fantastic. To say that someone who started out in the UFC in 2002, went away for a long time, competed at 185, had a very mediocre career outside of the UFC, comes back and is now basically competing for the title in his next fight, or one fight away from competing for the title. It's amazing. It's an incredible feat. If you were to tell me last year, after he loses to like Lorenz Larkin on the Strikeforce Rockhold Kennedy card, if you tell me that guy is going to drop to 170 and compete for the UFC championship in 2014, I would laugh. I would laugh hysterically. You tell me he's going to beat Rory McDonald? Hell no. And yet he's beaten Josh Koscheck, Bobby Volker, and Rory McDonald all in 1 year and knocked two of those guys out and nearly knocked out Rory McDonald. So to say that this guy is is incredible is an understatement. Robbie Lawler is absolutely incredible. He is beyond incredible. He is so young still, old in combat age, but young in just regular age. Yet here he is, just on such a high level right now. He's got such great takedown defense. He's got a good ground game. He's got good power. He has good boxing. He's got good striking. He's got good kicks. He has just so many tools in his repertoire. And he's really putting it together at 170 right now. He's in his right weight class, and he feels good. He's hit a stride. It's going to be very, very interesting to see Robbie Lawler next year competing for the UFC belt. I think a lot of eyes are going to be open for that one because this is a guy who may very well be your UFC welterweight champion come the end of 2014.
Yeah, the thing I like about the Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald decision is you don't hear a lot of people complaining about it. You don't hear too many people saying, oh, Rory was robbed or whatever, because we all know Robbie Lawler won this fight. And, he's a fighter to the core, He's not going out there to try and just barely beat you or just, I hate to say play it safe, but trying to, not take too much damage. He's going to move forward and fight you, and that's what he did against Rory McDonald. And that was the perfect game plan, not letting Rory control the pace of the fight. He totally took over the pace of the fight, and whatever Rory did, he tried to be one above him, If Rory punched him, he was going to try to punch him harder, and that was very, very good. So, Robbie Lawler, if he's not fighting for the title in this next fight, he's fighting for a number one contender spot for sure.
Word up, yeah, Robbie Lawler. I mean, this is, someone like Ross said before that if a couple years ago you said Robbie Lawler would be fighting for the UFC championship in 2014, you'd probably headbutt him and spit in their face. But not so much anymore. I mean, beating an equipped Rory Mack, and it's back to the drawing boards for him. We'll definitely see. Let's move on to the co-main event. I don't want to spend too much time on it, obviously, because it was the reason why a lot of us went to Vegas to see Chael Sonnen fight. Like I said on Ramsey's show, I think all in all this will be a positive milestone in that this is going to have Chael move back to 185. He's sort of alluded to in the press conference afterwards that fighting at 205 is just too much for him. He has much harder problem with people's power and stuff. So I am glad he's moving back to 185. Saying that, Rashad came out. He came out flat in the last two fights before against Little Noggin Hendo. Knew he couldn't make the same choice in this fight and didn't. He came out looking excellent. This is the best Rashad Evans we've seen in a long time, and then he really puts his name back up there with the guys who are only a win or two away from the title. The Alexander Gustafsons, the Daniel Cormier's, even the Jimmy Manuwas now, I guess. But, Rashad has perennially been one of the top dogs in the division, and I don't dislike him, so it was kind of cool to see him, claim his spot again. But at the same time, it was tough seeing our boy Chael get worked the way he did.
I'll start off. Well, Rashad Evans is not only one of the best fighters in the UFC, but in the world. Okay, Rashad Evans is not mediocre at all. He hasn't lost his fire people are saying he lost. He's one of the best fighters in the world, and that's a fact. He went out and fought Chael Sonnen and finished him in the first round. He had Chael's legs flipping around, kicking when he took his back and flattened him out, hit him as hard as he could, and finished him. It was a great victory for Rashad Evans, and that's all I have to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, I guess it's my turn to speak, and all I gotta say is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this Wednesday at 12 a.m. Eastern Time, technically Thursday, we will be having our conference call, our media call for Necroma versus Hamilton, which goes down next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday, December 7th, live only on Free Per View. You can come see it if you're in Brooklyn. Tickets are on sale. It's at the Aviator Sports Arena. Come down, support your favorite. You can go north, you can go south. It doesn't matter. The Jew will be there. They will be there. I will be serving refreshments, not be there. As far as this fight goes, I really don't have anything to say. Be there. That's all I got to say for that. Be there. Be there. Brooklyn, be there.
Be there. And I like that echo because my phone likes turning its screen off every time I go to unmute myself. But, you know what? That's a damn personal problem. Let's move on to the main event. It was a 5-round fight for the welterweight championship between Johnny Hendricks and George St-Pierre. And it's one a lot of people are still talking about, you know. George won. Most people thought Johnny won. A lot of people were using the word robbery, even though I don't really think it was a robbery. I mean, even Johnny said it wasn't a robbery. Johnny won 2 rounds for sure. George won 2 rounds for sure. It all comes down to that first round that most people gave to Johnny. I originally gave it 10-10 because of all of the pro-GSP crowd noise. And I really think crowd noise had a lot to do with the decision. Because re-watching it, you know, I was watching kicks that I gave George a lot of credit for because the whole arena, you know, was like, oh! But watching it again, it's like, no, Johnny checked that kick pretty easily. So, yes, I think Canada, the fans won this fight for George. Yes, we will probably get a rematch. We'll talk about the retirement next because that's a whole other deal. But yeah, you know, it was an amazing fight, sort of taking the emotion out of it, taking out, you know, oh, so-and-so should have won. Oh, no, so-and-so should have won. Taking the bias and emotion out of it, it was a great fight. I mean, the fact that George, kind of like John Jones, he rallied in that 5th round. I mean, if George didn't win the 5th round against Johnny and John didn't win the 5th round against Gustafsson, we'd have 2 different champions. So the fact that they showed the will and the heart to come back and win that 5th round, and yeah, Johnny, I think, was getting a little tired, but still, that took a lot of grit from George. It was a hell of a fight. Obviously, afterwards, George said some things about retirement that kind of sadly took a lot of the focus off of the fight. You know, people, I rarely heard, what an amazing fight. All I heard was, it was a robbery, or what's George going to do, or what's going on with George, even though we still don't really know. So we'll talk about George's quasi-faux retirement later. But let's just focus on the fight now. What did you think of it? How did you score it? Who do you think won?
Okay, I'll break it down for you. I scored this fight 48-47 in favor of Johnny Hendricks. First round I gave to Johnny Hendricks. Second round I gave to Johnny Hendricks. Third round I gave to George St-Pierre. Fourth round I gave to Johnny Hendricks. And fifth round I just gave to George St-Pierre. Just. This fight was somewhat close, but upon further review, it was not as close as I thought. I thought Johnny Hendricks clearly won the rounds that he won, which were those 3 rounds, the first, the second, and the fourth. And I feel that George barely won the 2 rounds that he won. So it goes to show you who, and you look at their faces, it really goes to show you who won this fight. Now, I hope we get a rematch because I believe Johnny Hendricks is the better fighter who's going to get his belt back. It should be his belt. So I'm excited for that, but I actually want to step away from that, and I want to talk a little bit about judging for a second because the Nevada State Athletic Commission is so fucking corrupt that they managed to screw up yet another decision. Another one? Are you serious? To say, first of all, to say that mixed martial arts judging and boxing judging are the same thing and should be classified in the same category and scored the exact same way, it's fucking retarded. If you actually are going to tell me that a 10-9 round in boxing and MMA should kind of like be the same, or in MMA, a 10-9 round could be, let's say you have a really, really close round, like two guys, there's barely a clear winner, like fighter A barely beats fighter B, and then in the next round, fighter A destroys fighter B, but not enough for a 10-8. So even though he dominated that round and he barely won the round before it, they're equals. That doesn't make sense. That's just stupid. So somehow this scoring system is still implemented and still used, and we're screwing fighters over because of it, because there's absolutely no way under a full scoring system where you score each round, or you score the whole fight as a whole, there's no way that GSP would win that fight. GSP didn't win that fight. GSP lost that fight, but was gifted a decision under stupid boxing scoring. This is not boxing. This is MMA. This is mixed martial arts. You have more than fists. You have elbows. You have shins. You have knees. You have feet. You have takedowns. You have jiu-jitsu. You have so many different variables involved in this game, and we're using a 10-9 system. Fuck that. We need reform. We need change right now, and I want to see it happen before the next fucking card, before we get to December, because it's going to screw someone else in December. And then guess what? They're going to come back in February, and they'll screw someone again. And then they'll have a big boxing fight, and they'll screw someone again. It's disgusting. Reform needs to happen now. I can't even continue. Yao, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of hard to follow that, but I'll start off by saying I did have George St-Pierre winning this fight. I had him winning every single round. Very close, though. Very, very close. Very, very extremely close fight, but I did have him winning every single round. And even in the rematch, I say he dominates Johnny Hendricks. We have to remember, people, George St-Pierre is a master of the rematch. Okay, look at his rematches. Look at the first match, look at the second match, and you'll see a clear distinction in how he fights his opponent. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. You know, the first match against Penn, it was very close. George eked a split decision victory. The second fight, he covered himself in Vaseline so he wouldn't lose. So expect George to come out greased up with Vaseline, or maybe, you know, grease from a bar next door. Expect him to be covered in something, maybe even cum. We don't know. Before we talk about George's, you know, his weird post-fight speech and he might retire, this and that, actually something that just popped up in my my mind recently. Both of you are martial arts competitors. You know, currently Yao is definitely a little bit more active, but Ross is just as much a competitor as Yao. What, you know, if you know that the judges who are judging your fight are completely incompetent, which we've seen a ton lately, whether it's with GSP Hendricks, whether it's with boxing, how does that, you know, obviously if you think the judges are shitty, you're going to be more apt to try and finish the fight, which isn't exactly hand in hand with a lot of people's strategies. What's going through your mind if you know that the people judging the fight are not as capable as you'd like them to be?
I mean, it's like I said, it's a bad problem. It's a really bad problem. It's so bad that every fighter fears it. I know I'll fear it. Yao fears it. Everyone fears it. And that is why you finish your fucking fights. Finish your fight. If you finish your fight, you don't have anything to worry about. Finish your fight. But it's a shame that we have to implement that message, that you have to go out there and pretty much try and finish a fight or die trying because we have such bad judging. It's scary. It makes me frightened for the future of the sport when we have all these young talents who are going to come up in this crappy judging era and take more damage because they're going after the fight more and they're trying to knock each other's heads off more instead of, having a good competitive match. Instead of that, instead they're just trying to punch each other's heads off, and they're swinging to the finish and swinging for the fences because they're trying to sway judges and go for the finish or die trying. It's disgusting. So I'm terrified of it. So finish your fights. That's the only solution you got now.
Truth.
Yeah, Ross said exactly what I was going to say. It is sad that we have to resort to saying finish your fight because you know how the judges can be, and that shouldn't be, But the best thing is if you know how to win a round in MMA, you should have nothing to worry about, and that's something I think a lot of fighters today don't necessarily know how to do. I mean, the master of winning a round is George St-Pierre. He knows exactly what to do, how to position himself to win rounds. If you look at, when he's striking, he always keeps his opponent, tries to keep his opponent, on that black line. If you guys know what I'm talking about, that black line on the octagon, keep him on the outside against the cage. He takes the center, gets his takedown, stays dominant. If you know how to win a round, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. But it's the close rounds that can get you. So, like Ross said, finish your fight or learn how to win a round.
That's right. And, you were talking about George. Let's get into what he said after the fight. It was very bizarre. It was sort of being passed around before the fight. Oh, is George going to retire? And George swept it off. No, I am not going to retire. He apparently talked to Dana just one-on-one. Dana's like, you aren't thinking about retiring, right? He's like, no, Dana, I will not. After the fight, in a speech that he apparently doesn't clearly remember, he starts talking about having personal issues, having to hang up the gloves. He left the door open for a return, but basically said his head isn't in it now. Dana White at the post-fight presser seemed very serious about it. He didn't let anyone ask any questions. It was actually really funny. He said, all right, no more questions about George, quitting. And then the next question is someone asking him about George quitting in French. So we don't know, it's looking very likely that George is going to come back, at least do his rematch. After that, no one knows, obviously, but it's looking like he will do at least a rematch. But we've never heard this from GSP, B never really heard this from such a dominant guy saying, after his 9th or 10th title defense that he's thinking about hanging up his gloves. And there has been so much speculation. TMZ released a report saying that he knocked some girl out. His dad was sick. The thing about his dad being sick was allegedly false. His sister said that his dad was not sick. And apparently the thing about a pregnant girl, George denied too. But, you never know if George just threw a chick down the stairs or something. Because he seems like the kind of person who would throw a chick down the stairs. Yeah, it's been really wild. Just, people wondering what's going on with George, whether he's gonna fight again, after the rematch. If he does fight in the rematch, whether or not he'll keep the belt in a rematch. Everything is sort of up in the air. And this post-fight speech, turned maybe 5 or 6 questions people had about George and the fight to 1,000. So this is, something we could talk about ad nauseum. But what are your thoughts? GSP, the retirement. What do you think's going on? Do you think he'll have the rematch? Do you think he'll stick around long afterwards? What sense can we make out of all this bullshit?
I really wish people would leave him alone with all this and leave the topic alone. I understand, the media's job is to get things out there, draw people in, bring attention to their websites and Twitters and everything. but I really wish people would leave him alone. He's my favorite fighter, and aside from that, he's his own man. He can do whatever he wants. People are saying he owes Johnny the rematch and everything. No, Johnny just wants the belt. George is the man holding the belt. If George lets the belt go, then it shouldn't matter. He doesn't owe anybody anything. He can do whatever he wants. If he were to retire today, he'd be a legend, a future. He'd be inducted into the Hall of Fame. He was a legend 4 fights ago, basically. 4, maybe even 5 fights ago. So I don't have anything to say on the topic. The most I have to say is he can do whatever he wants.
Well, yeah, George St-Pierre actually does owe people stuff. He owes me $2 million, but we won't get into that because that's a private matter. George, I know you're watching. I know you're listening. Get me my money. But aside from that, George retiring, I don't know if he'll retire. I mean, he owes people money. Yeah, I'm still talking to you, George. And I think he wants to start a family, and in order to start a family, you need money. He's still young. He's still good. And we really can't make a judgment until we find out the full extent of his personal problems. George, seriously, get me my fucking money. But, yeah, I think George St-Pierre, like Yao said, is a legend regardless. So hopefully we see him back. Call me bitch.
That's right. You better give Ross his goddamn money. We will move on. Yao's "Leave George Alone" speech was touching. I would have played "Leave Britney Alone" in the background if my laptop wasn't complete shit. Once again, Ross, thank you so much for doing the tech end of this, because without that, we wouldn't be doing a show tonight.
I apologize for the little sound drops that I keep giving of just the Windows noise. It's a complete accident. I figured it out. It's Skype. Every time I click the backspace button on the Skype chat, it just makes that noise. So, yeah, just fair warning.
Word up, son. We do want to get to the MMA news from the last couple weeks and break down real quick this tough finale. But first and foremost, it's time for the November beatdown of the month. Usually I have, the sound up. I can play a song in the background. We usually have a song to play during the beatdown of the month, but in its absence, I'll do the sounds myself. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the beatdown for November 2013. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That was horrible, but my beatdown of the month was Brandon Thatch just going absolutely apeshit on Paulo Thiago. It was a hell of a fight. Brandon Thatch, I actually got a chance to meet him at RFA 11. He is a big boy. He's what, 6'2"? I mean, he is a very tall, lanky dude, and he went out there 2 minutes and 10 seconds in Paulo Thiago's backyard of Guyana, Brazil. Actually earned a submission, even though it wasn't really a jiu-jitsu submission. Just beat him up so bad he made Thiago tap. Brandon Thatch. It's his next couple fights are going to be really fun because he's just going to murder more people. But when he gets up into that elite echelon of welterweights, where you have top level wrestlers, top level strikers, think of Thatch versus Condit, Thatch versus Brown. Those are going to be amazing fights, and the guy loves fighting. Not one of these dudes who is going to take 6 or 7 months off between every fight. He fought the end of August, roughly 2 months later, the beginning of November. We'll probably see him fight again in early 2014. And by the end of next year, I really hope the UFC starts throwing him bones and elite fighters. Things are going to get real interesting with Brandon Thatch.
You want me to go? I'll take it over from here. Beatdowns of the month. We've had a great month here in November for MMA. We've had a lot of great beatdowns. We've had a lot of great fights. I can already think of like 15 off the top of my head. There were just so many people got beaten down, and I loved every single minute of all of it. But the best beatdown of all was a 40-second knockout by Jeremy Stevens of Honey Jason. He knocked him out with a head kick. He killed the man. He beat him down so bad that Honey Jason went to the back in tears and punched a wall, needing 20-something staples. So 26, 27, something like that. So not only did he knock him out, but he indirectly caused a man to get 27 staples in his arm. So if that's not beatdown of the month, I don't know what is.
Yeah, the truth.
My beatdown of the month should come as no surprise. It is Sugar Rashad Evans defeating Chael Sonnen via TKO in the very first round. This was a very, very good beatdown. He made Chael Sonnen look like a baby. That's it.
Sort of like Allen's going to make you look like a baby. And actually, in an unprecedented move, I have a second beatdown, ladies and gentlemen. It may not have been a beatdown you saw or watched on television live, but I had pretty decent seats to RFA 11, like I mentioned just a second ago this past Friday. And I watched Lyoto Machida's brother murder someone in the ring, flying knee that caught Brian Wood so badly. He not only broke his jaw, he not only broke other things, he broke bones in the roof of his mouth. How do you break bones in the roof of someone's mouth? That is some dirty shit. I knew something was up immediately after seeing the flying kick knockout, and a couple minutes later, Wood still hadn't stood up. A few minutes later, Wood still hadn't stood up. A few minutes later, this isn't a joke or a story or anything. The paramedics made me get out of my seat because I was in one of the first rows on the floor, and they made us leave and stand to the side so they could get a stretcher in and out. Stretchered him off. I took a vine of it, and horrible taste. I think he's still in the hospital. It was a brutal knockout. Easily the most brutal knockout I've ever seen in person, whether we're talking about MMA events or street fights. I mean, he put the knee to his chin so hard. I hope Wood's career isn't permanently altered after that, because that was a tough one. We will move on to the news of mixed martial arts. This is where I would normally play another drop. And you know what? In the spirit of things, I'll try and make a horrible sound effect again. Dun 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 dun.
I was going to cover the horn for you if you wanted.
We'll rehearse it next time because that was horrible. First, I want to just drop some good news. Matt Grice released from the hospital after 2 months. He had some severe brain trauma in a car accident, I think. So it's really awesome hearing that Grice is headed home. And also, Stefan Struve apparently cleared by his doctors to return to 100% full-time training. This is awesome. We don't know if Grice is necessarily gonna return to fighting, even though I've heard stories pointing that direction recently. What do you think? I mean, it's a little morbid to say, oh, well, will these life-threatening injuries affect their fight career? So I don't necessarily want to talk about how good you think they'll do coming up, but do you think they should be getting back into fighting? You have guys like Brian Mullisaw, who recently retired due to I think kidney issues. What do you think? Is fighting something that you think they should get back? Involved in?
No, absolutely not. If you get punched in the brain, punched in the head, and you suffer brain damage, it's over. Game over. End of discussion. No questions asked. You should not be put in a cage to get punched in the face.
Fair enough, yeah.
These guys, I'm sure they're doctors, professionals, have been in the game for a very, very long time. If the doctors feel they can go on and compete, sure. You have to remember, for some of these guys, fighting is all they have. Fighting is their number one source of income. So, if that's what you have to do to make money, then that's what you have to do, And also, fighting is mental, It's not, I mean, it is physical, but they can come back in a way that they can fight smarter and still be able to make money if that's what they're doing it for, I don't think they will get to a level, a championship level, but I mean, that's entirely up to how they take control of their careers, but yeah, if they're cleared to get back into fighting, I'm sure it's not a terrible decision made on their doctor's part.
Word up. I love when I go to press the unmute button on my screen, just flashes black. I don't like blacks. Let's move on to Husamar Paul Harris being signed by the World Series of Fighting, which is only really bizarre because the World Series of Fighting said pretty clearly that they would not sign him. I don't know what my assumption is Husamar wanted X amount of money to join a fight organization, and now he realizes that he doesn't need to worry about money now. He really needs to worry about being able to field another MMA fight, especially field another MMA fight in an organization where people are going to care about it. The World Series of Fighting is a organization that I still respect, especially when you look at the secondary MMA organizations and match them up to like Bellator. Bellator is just full of scumbags. They're trying to screw fighters over left and right. I got to give credit to the World Series of Fighting for at least not doing that. But at the same time, when you have fighters in your organization saying that they will never fight Usmar, I don't know how prudent of a business decision it is. Do you disagree with the World Series of Fighting signing him, or do you think sort of like business? If the price is right, I don't care if you're Hitler, we're gonna sign you. Man, imagine if Hitler had like sick MMA. That would be scary.
Well, first off, I would sign on to fight Hitler any day of the week. So if you want to book that fight, Hitler, I'll fight you right now. But Husamar Paul Harris, I mean, it's close. It's almost the equivalent. Hitler was killing people. He's ripping limbs off. It's not much different. Plus, he had doctors doing it anyway. Anyway, let's not even get into that. Actually, brief note, I had a discussion about this the other night with a couple friends of mine about the whole Nazi doctors and how they were, like, doing all these weird things. Like, there was one doctor that would literally experiment on humans, and his studies are still used today by doctors. It's so fucked up, but they still use it. Anyway, Husamar Paul Harris is an idiot. He's got an IQ of 7. That is just, oh my God! How can we trust a man like that to get into a cage and fight people? Yet here they are allowing it. I'm not surprised. I said World Series of Fighting would sign him, even though that they said they wouldn't. I knew they would. They were kind of just following suit with everyone else. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, we won't sign him because he ripped Mike Pierce's leg off and he let go way after the tap and all that. And then here they are signing him. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I expected it. Who knows where he'll go as far as divisional placement. I have nothing else to say about it.
Yeah, Husamar Paul Harris. WSOF signing him was a good idea. I mean, they now have a bigger name in their company, I believe Husamar can beat all of their welterweights or middleweights wherever he decides to fight, and he can become world champion.
That's right. Well, I googled Nazi human experimentation. Yeah, it's an issue where it's really fucking weird. We don't know whether he's just this malicious person who doesn't give a shit, or apparently in training he's done it to friends of his. So you never really know. But just as a fan of the sport, it makes me nervous because I mean, you put him in there versus an up and coming guy like all right, Brandon Thatch, one of my favorite fighters. I would not want Husamar to fight him. Why do I think Thatch would lose? Hell no. I think 99 times out of 100 Thatch just head kicks his head into the nosebleeds. But the one out of each 100 times he gets caught, you have to worry about him tearing his knee up. And tearing your knee up isn't like a rolled ankle. Tearing your knee up is career threatening. So I don't ever want to see him fight someone I'm a fan of because he's dirty. He may have only cranked Pierce's leg 1.5 seconds after he tapped, but you know what? He's obviously built up a reputation of doing it, and I don't like it one fucking bit. Let's move on. One thing that's been kind of funny, this war of words between Michael Bisping and Tim Kennedy. Kennedy sort of, I guess sees it for what it is, knows that Michael is a fighter whose stock is higher than his, someone he can use to sort of slingshot himself to the top. You think about it, for fighters who are thought of as elite level fighters, who has Michael beat? He has not really beaten anyone. And this back and forth has actually been really funny. The back and forth between Bisping and Lopez was that his name? George Lopez. Wow, holy shit! I just called him George Lopez. If I wasn't hosting this, I would walk off right now. Jorge Rivera, not George Lopez. Jesus Christ, my unintentional racist moment of the night.
Where I rang the bell 3 times just for you.
George Lopez. Hell yeah. That is the unintentional racist moment of the night. The Rivera versus Bisping trash talk got a little ugly just because Bisping, I think, was really offended by the comments about his wife, and obviously he spit in the corner and got away with it somehow. This has been a little bit more fun. Bisping tweeted a picture at Tim Kennedy of a card that said "for a special aunt," but the A in aunt is really weird and looks like a C, so it looks like "for a special cunt." It's been a lot of fun going back and forth, but realistically, they step in the cage. Who wins? Michael Bisping, coming off a 6-month layoff because of a detached retina or cornea or some eye shit, and Tim Kennedy coming off an impressive first-round knockout of Rafael Natal.
That's a tough one. Who wins between two seagulls fighting for a French fry on the beach? That's my question to you. I don't think...
The American seagull.
I don't know if Tim Kennedy is on Michael Bisping's level. Then again, I don't know if Michael Bisping's that good. It's a weird paradox. We just don't really know. Will Bisping be able to keep it on the feet and knock him out? I don't know. Will Tim Kennedy be able to muscle him down and take him down? I don't know. Can Tim Kennedy land a big power shot like he did on Rafael Natal and kind of find the same success as Dan Henderson and put the trash-talking Bisping out cold? I don't know. It's like two seagulls fighting for a French fry on the beach. I don't know.
Yao, have you ever fought anybody for a French fry on the beach?
Yeah, the fight between Tim Kennedy and Michael Bisping, it's a very close. It's very hard to choose who will win. On paper, whatever that means, it's very close. But I think if they fight, it will be very one-sided. I'm not sure who, would win, but I think it would be a very one-sided fight.
Word up. Yeah, I actually think Bisping would edge him a little bit, but the time off, you never know. A lot of times people take time off, come back, you wouldn't even know it. Other times people take time off and they look like a totally different fighter. Time for the 10 solid seconds of sports. I didn't do it this week. Blah blah blah. All right, let's move on to one final MMA now.
Job.
That's fucking right.
The best 10 solid seconds of sports. Can I ring the bell for that one? I think that was glorious.
Ring it. The last topic was actually something I meant originally to talk about after we talked about the co-main event. But when Yao said that Chael Sonnen looked like a baby, I got really angry and started punching things, and all my short-term memory went to shit. So Rashad Evans, I have mentioned he's sort of coming back into the elite title contendership talk at 205, which is nice after seeing him talk about moving to 185. And now that Chael's talking about moving to 185, I do not want to see Rashad move down to middleweight. But as far as Rashad's next opponent, people were thinking that Daniel Cormier was going to fight Phil Davis for a while. That sort of hasn't came about. Is Evans' next opponent Daniel Cormier? Is it Phil Davis or is it somebody else?
I would hope.
Well,
go ahead, yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Well, like you said in the beginning, people are saying, "Oh, Rashad is back to the elite and everything, and he's back, he's top 5, he's this and that." He never left, okay? Rashad has been the elite of the elite at 205 since he joined the UFC. He's been top 5 since he joined the UFC. So, yeah, so he is the elite of the elite at 205. His next opponent, I believe it will be either Daniel Cormier or what is this guy's name? Who is Gustafsson fighting?
Jimmy Manuwa.
Yes, if Jimmy Manuwa gets injured, which I think he will, I think Rashad steps in and fights Gustafsson in the main event for a number 1 contender spot. So out of those two, I don't think they do the Phil Davis rematch. It's stupid and pointless. So yeah, either Daniel Cormier or Alexander Gustafsson.
I don't know this one either. This is another tough one. I think Rashad Evans is in a pickle. It would be weird for the UFC to kill him off as a contender or to kill Cormier off as a contender. So I don't think they should do that fight. At the same time, I don't think they should match him up with Gustafsson. You're going to kill Gustafsson off as a contender potentially, or you may kill Rashad off as a contender. I think the best thing to do with Rashad, because there's no one for him to fight right now, as stupid as it sounds, Rashad Evans versus Rafael Feijão Cavalcante. It sounds stupid. It sounds absurd. People will go, why is he fighting Feijão? Feijão does not deserve Rashad. Rashad deserves much better than that. What do you got to complain about? He'll headline a card. He'll make his money. He won't drop in rankings. He'll get a nice quick knockout win. And he'll be fighting again for the title within the next year. So there's nothing to worry about. I think that's the best thing they could do. Do that fight like headlining a card. There's just no one for Rashad to fight without killing off any contenders. And in this division, we need all the contenders we can get. I would assume we have Gustafsson fighting for the title. I mean, we got Glover, Gustafsson, Cormier. Phil Davis is probably going to get knocked out there at some point. I think he's going to lose to Cormier or someone, and he's not going to get that title shot anytime soon. So we have Glover, Gustafsson, Cormier, and maybe Rashad again. And then after that, who do we have? There really isn't anyone. Weidman will move up to 205, but by the time he does that, all those guys are not even going to be we'll have guys in the contention, but they won't be in the contention to fight John Jones. It'll be someone else potentially. So I think the best thing they could do right now for Rashad Evans is do him and Feijão on a headliner for Fox Sports 1 or something, co-main event of a pay-per-view, anything, third to headlining fight on a huge pay-per-view, just do that fight. Fei Zhao versus Rashad Evans.
It does sound a little bit crazy just because Cavalcante is so far down the rankings, but I actually like it. Evans, Cormier, Gustafsson, the UFC knows there's a lot of money in all those fights, probably in the order of Gustafsson, Cormier, and Evans. But, I like it, actually. Give Rashad, Yao Yua said Shad never left. He definitely left. I mean, he lost to Little Nog, and then he came out just looking flat as fuck against a Dan Henderson, who just got literally murdered by Vitor Belfort. So give Shad one more fight to really show, I'm back, motherfuckers. And Cavalcante would be a good one to do it with. I was gonna make a point about something, but I totally forgot. Oh yeah, I was gonna make a completely unrelated point that we're gonna move on to the Tough 18 finale. But really quick first, if you ever visit Denver, Colorado, or Golden, Colorado, or Colorado, make sure you take a trip to the Miller Coors Brewing Company. They're definitely not paying me any money. They did not pay $500,000 to have me mention this on the podcast. But what I do know is that they'll give 4 or 5 beers out during the tour, which for a vicious alcoholic like me does a little bit. I got a little buzz, but it was really funny watching all these old people just get chocolate wasted. I mean, I was watching 70-year-olds walk out obviously hammered. So way to go, Miller Coors, for letting your people get wasted at the end of the tour before they drive home. I'm having an awesome Thanksgiving week with my mama. That's right. I love my mama. I'm not ashamed to admit it. She's in town for Thanksgiving. We're having an awesome week. Let's move on. And that was not a complete non sequitur. Let's move on to Tough 18, the Tough finale. Tomorrow is actually in 2 days. Or I guess now it is tomorrow because it is Tuesday, whether you're on the East or West Coast, the 26th. Tomorrow we will see the final episode of The Ultimate Fighter. Before we talk about the Tough 18 finale fight card, kind of give me your impressions on the entire season. Personally, I don't know if Zuffa did that good of a job sort of marketing this rivalry between Ronda and Tate. The only thing they've really done is make a lot of people hate Ronda and make a lot of people hate Tate. It's been nothing but drama. It really makes me respect Chael Sonnen and John Jones for what they did the season before, and saying, you know what, John, you might not like me, I might not like you, but this isn't about us. This is about the fighters, and we're coaches. We're not, here to talk shit, even though I'm sure Zuffa loves it when people talk shit. Sonnen and Jones kept it very classy. Ronda and Misha, not so much. Even though, I'm rooting on Ronda and laughed when she did it, you can't really call winning the coach's challenge and turning and flicking off Misha and saying, fuck you, bitch, as much as I love that, and I'm glad she did it. I don't know if classy is the first word that comes to mind. Obviously, it was the first season with men and women, and I am sort of glad that this didn't turn into the real world of just people bitching at one another and talking about, you ate my blah, 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 oh no, so-and-so likes so-and-so, so-and-so just did it in the hot tub. I'm glad it didn't get that dramatic. It still had its little moments, but it was cool seeing girls both in the house, women coaching. It was definitely a memorable season. You had 2 people get kicked out of the house for missing weight, in Anthony Gutierrez and Cody Bollinger, which Bollinger, at least he tried to drop the weight. Seemed like he was dieting somewhat, maybe. even though in last week's episode we heard that he was apparently not dieting as strict as a lot of people thought. I loved seeing Gutierrez, who just had been so annoying, whether he was like trying to flirt with the girls in the house or trying to flirt with Rhonda, just coming across as a huge cheese ball, always, seemed to not take things as serious as he should have. People telling him like the day before the weigh-ins, hey, you shouldn't be eating that, and him going, and the little one-on-one thing with the camera, just, oh, I wish people would just get off my back and let me eat what I'm going to eat. I'm going to make weight. No, you're not. And then when he was forced to, he just gave up and quit. So Gutierrez maybe had the most pathetic showing in a tough season that we've seen in a long time. Away from that, we obviously have Chris Holdsworth and David Grant, who will fight in the men's finals. We'll talk about that fight a little later. Juliana Pena is going to take on the winner of Jessica Rakoczy and Raquel Pennington, a fight we will see tomorrow night. It was a shocking season going into it. A lot of people thought what's-her-face was going to win, Tara LaRosa, but she got axed in the prelims. Then people were thinking that Shayna Baszler was going to win. She got axed in the first round. Then people thought Jessamyn Duke or Peggy Morgan might win. They got axed in the first round. So it has been an unexpected season, to say the least. What has sort of stood out so far in these 12 episodes we've seen of The Ultimate Fighter 18?
What has stood out is that there's really only a handful of guys that are UFC caliber for the show. Chris Holdsworth has proven his worth, I believe. Davey Grant has also shown that he is a solid fighter and definitely deserves the UFC spot. Other than that, I can't say any of the other guys do. Maybe Cody Bollinger did, but he kind of blew it. So hopefully we see him in the octagon at some point at featherweight in his natural class. But I think the women stole the season big time. Absolutely stole the season. They performed in their fights. They had great fights. They looked really good. They just went at it. They did not care. They went after it, and we're going to see tomorrow night another solid fight. I hope at least we see a fight. But we will hopefully see one hell of a fight between Jessica Rakoczy and Raquel Pennington. Two very solid fighters, two very good stand-up fighters. Jessica Rakoczy is a very good boxer. Raquel Pennington's got very good Muay Thai, very good striking, and she's got some solid wrestling and some solid grappling and some solid jiu-jitsu. So I think this is actually going to be a very good fight. The tough season, because of the men being disappointing, the rest of the season has kind of suffered as a result. That being said, the women have really stepped it up, and the rivalry has really kind of made it better. The drama is annoying. I hate seeing drama on this show, but it is a reality show. I get the whole purpose. But, I mean, when you're on, like, FX, all right, play up your drama. When you're on Fox Sports 1, calm the drama down. Let's see some fights. Like, there's no need for it. Tough 17 was the best tough season there will ever be, aside from, like, the early tough seasons, like Tough 1 and Tough 2 and Tough 6 and stuff like that. So Tough 5. I don't know where this ranks as far as best tough seasons of all time, but I would say it's been okay, not amazing. It's been okay. The women have been fantastic, though.
True.
Yeah, this season of Tough was actually not very appealing to me. It was almost bad, to be honest. Like Ross said, drama was very annoying. You know, it was a huge turnoff for me. The level of talent wasn't even that impressive to me. The selection of coaches wasn't that good. I barely watched this season. That's about it.
Yeah, you both make a really good point in that Zuffa needs to realize that the Ultimate Fighter is no longer a vehicle to bring in mainstream fans. The Ultimate Fighter is something that the hardcore fans watch. I mean, when all of this shit was going on with Gutierrez and not making weight, if this was the real world and we had a bunch of MTV watchers watching, they'd be going crazy. Oh, it's such a bomb, oh, this and that, oh, blah, 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 blah. What I saw most on Twitter was people saying, like, damn, I was really looking forward to this fight between Grant and Gutierrez, and I felt the same exact way. I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter to see people bitch about who ate whose food. I don't watch The Ultimate Fighter to see fucking Juliana Pena write Chris Holdsworth a love letter. I don't watch it to watch people bitch at one another. I watch it because I'm a mixed martial arts fan, and I love seeing shit like the little segment where Ronda Rousey was showing people how to escape off of their back and making people like sort of inch back and forth on the mat using only their back, and showing people her arm bar, and fights between people who are literally fighting for their career and know if I lose, I get eliminated from the Ultimate Fighter. Likely won't be in the UFC. If I win, I'm one step closer to being a tough champion. That's what it's all about. It isn't about fucking people talking, in the hot tub. Oh, so and so ate all my cereal. So if the next season of Tough Beat, because I love this new style of filming that they've rolled out for Tough 17 and 18, and I hope they stick with that, because that part of it's really cool. It makes it feel, like a documentary, and in a way it is. But, man, if we can just cut out this drama angle, I would love that. Before we talk about the Tough 18 finale, I do want to talk about the one fight still remaining in the house. Like I mentioned before, we know who's going to be in the men's final. Chris Holdsworth getting a first-round sub against Michael Wooten, which, he has 2 first-round subs now and 2 fights in the house, so that's very impressive. Obviously, David Grant subbing out Louis Facette in the first round, or in the second round of the elimination round of Tough, and then beating Anthony Gutierrez via DQ. You got Grant and Holdsworth on the other side. Juliana Pena coming off 2 first-round submissions, versus definitely chicks who are pretty equipped. And Shayna Baszler, obviously the Queen of Hearts or Queen of Spades or whatever the fuck she is. And Sarah Moraes taking on the winner of Raquel Pennington, Jessica Rakoczy. Rakoczy, the boxer who TKO'd Roxanne Modafferi, a fan favorite in the second round. Raquel Pennington, UD Jessamine Duke. Rakoczy versus Pennington. Who you got?
I love this fight. It's going to be a war, if it happens. I can't wait to see it, and I do not know who's going to win. But I've said that a lot, so I will give a prediction. I think Jessica Rakoczy is kind of turning her career around. I think Raquel Pennington, on paper, is the better fighter, but I think working with Ronda Rousey during the season of The Ultimate Fighter improved Jessica Rakoczy's game, at least in the temporary run. And what matters is in the moment when you're on Tough. Nothing else matters. Your previous experience doesn't mean shit. All that matters is what you can bring to the table in the moment. And she obviously, I believe, picks up things like a sponge. So I think Jessica Rakoczy wins this fight. I think she's able to stuff takedowns. I think she's able to keep it on the feet, and I think she's able to win the TKO or something. So I'm picking Jessica Rakoczy, but I think it's going to be a war if it happens.
Truth.
Yeah, I don't have a solid prediction for this fight. It's been such an unpredictable season, with everything that's gone on. Very hard to call, to be honest. I'm leaning a little bit toward Jessica Rakoczy, but I don't know why. But yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
Word up. And if I were to say something like we saw a prostitute in Las Vegas that looked exactly like Jessica Rakoczy, that would be extremely disrespectful. So I'm gonna move on. Let's go to this fight card coming up at the Mandalay Bay Event Center at Las Vegas. Man, I don't know what I was gonna say. I said the venue and then I said at. I was like, fuck. The only thing I could say now is the venue again. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with it. It is at Las Vegas, Nevada, the city that two of us were in just a couple weeks ago. And it is nice, but it's nice in short bursts. I would not want to spend more than a week there. We got Gray Maynard taking on Nate Diaz, a fight that I thought was hilarious. Nate Diaz jokingly tweeted a while back, like, "Oh, I can't make the fight. I have my high school reunion." My favorite part about that is people took him seriously. People were like, "Oh, Diaz is good. He isn't fighting Gray anymore because he's going to a reunion." A, do you think he would announce that on Twitter? B, Nate Diaz isn't the type of guy I see going to his high school reunion. I have a few people I know who I went to school with, like Nate Diaz, and I live across the country now, and I'm not going back to see some people I don't give a shit about. But if I were to go, I don't think Diaz would be the kind of person I would see there. We'll save that for last. First, I want to break down the first two. Sorry, I cut myself off there. What's sort of interesting about the tough finales is we don't know who's gonna fight who until literally the days before. I mean, Jessamyn Duke and Peggy Morgan was just announced today. So a lot of fights we don't know about yet, but we do know about a few fights. Ryan Benoit taking on Josh Sampo. So pumped to see Sampo fight in the UFC. That's going to be incredible. I think a lot of them. I've talked to a couple people who think my thoughts on Sampo might be a little bit overrated, but I think the world of them. You got Sean Spencer taking on Drew Dober at welterweight. Jared Rosholt, brother of Jake Rosholt, taking on Walt Harris. And a fight we were just talking about before we went live, Hani Yaya taking on Tom Ninamaki, who's actually on an 11-fight win streak. And one of his couple losses before he started the streak was to Hatsu Hioki, so you can't really thumb your nose at losing to a grappling ace like Hioki. Of these four fights, what stands out? I can't wait to see my boy Josh Sampo.
I think that comment was directed at me. I'm not a fan of Josh Sampo. I think he's overrated. I think to call him a top 10 flyweight is preposterous. So I'm not really looking forward to that fight. Good for the kid. It's going to be great for him to get his UFC debut, and he's young, and maybe he'll rise up the ranks. But until then, I don't think much of him. The fight I'm looking forward to the most out of this is probably the Hani Yaya fight. I think Hani Yaya is fun to watch. I think the guy he's fighting is a very solid guy on an 11-fight winning streak. That one definitely is the most interesting to me. Plus, it probably has the most relevance out of any other fight there.
Yeah, out of all of them, probably looking forward most to Yaya's fight. He's been up and down in his career, but I'm really looking forward to him mostly out of all these fights.
Hani Yaya, indeed. Sorry about that little mute break for the third time. I tried pressing on mute, and the screen went black. Let's move on to the next little group of prelims. You got of course Akira Corsani taking on Maximo Blanco, and Jessamyn Duke taking on Peggy Morgan. What do you think about these two? I'll save my opinion for last and let you all sound off first this time. Ross, truth?
These are two interesting fights because in Akira Corsani, you have someone who's coming off, well, not so much coming off The Ultimate Fighter, but someone who was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 14, hasn't fought much because of just injuries, so he really hasn't done much, but he's undefeated since fighting in the octagon professionally. He beat Andy Ogle in a fight most people thought he lost, and then he beat Robbie Peralta decisively in a fight that most people thought he wasn't supposed to win. So, all the credit to Akira. I think this is a solid fight. Maximo Blanco, though, is a motherfucker. He's a tough guy. He hits hard. He's got great striking. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's a very solid fighter. I mean, he lacks a little bit in the wrestling department, but he's still relatively young. He's only like 30 years old, so he still has time to improve. I don't see him fighting for the title, but this is a solid featherweight fight. I think Maximo Blanco is the better fighter. I think he beats Akira. I don't think Akira really is going to test him so much. It'll be relatively competitive for a little while, but I think Maximo Blanco finishes him. Women's bantamweight, that fight between Peggy Morgan and Jessamine Duke. Now I'm stumbling over my words here. I can't even think straight. It's a long podcast, long night, ladies and gentlemen. I went to Monday Night Raw earlier tonight. It absolutely sucked. Don't watch wrestling. It will destroy you. Anyway, Jessamine Duke, she's a killer. Peggy Morgan, she's a killer. Both are skyscrapers. You got 6'1" Peggy Morgan versus 5'11" Jessamine Duke. It's going to be the craziest fight of giraffes you've ever seen. I cannot wait to see this one. They're going to stand. They're going to trade. It's going to look amazing. Peggy Morgan hits harder, and I think she might be the slightly better fighter, but I think Jessamine Duke pulls off the upset. Slight upset.
I got to go with fellow New Yorker, Akira Kurosani, beating his opponent. I don't even know who he's fighting. Doesn't matter. But, yeah, Akira Kurosani all the way.
Going for the Swede and Corsani. We have 3 more fights to break down before we close it out. But actually, I forgot to pass it over to Ross. Ross, I don't have any music for you. I would hum in the background, but it would just take away from the brilliance. Whether you want to break down the odds a little bit, whether you want to talk more shit on Raw, because apparently it didn't sound like the best time in the world. Whatever you want to do, bring it to him for a hot second.
Jake, I come prepared just in case things like these happen. The Jew is here, and the Jew has got his own background music with him. It's something that I don't even know if the mic is picking up. I don't even know what's going on. But I will bring the Jew to you in a little different way tonight. It's a little quiet here because we don't really have our resources. But I don't have bets. You see, I'm going to tell you a little ditty, a little story. I went to Monday Night Raw tonight, and I paid $180 for Upper Deck tickets. It's the stupidest thing I've ever done. But I always wait until the last minute, and I've learned my lesson. The Jew has learned his lesson. I know, the Jew got a bad deal. I don't know how he did it. It's weird, it's crazy, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I waited until the last minute. Don't wait until the last minute. But the show sucked. It was $180 of just pure waste, and I wish someone could pay me for the horrible, horrible show that I had to sit through. It was the worst WWE show I've ever attended. I mean, seriously, they don't listen to the fans. The fans want to see quality product, and here they are feeding us cat shit every single show, week in and week out, even though we complain all the time on the internet and in emails if some people are into that kind of thing. It's crazy. It annoys me. It really grinds my gears, for lack of a better term. And I want my 180 back. But not just my 180. You see, before I alluded to something about $2 million that George St-Pierre owes me, I was robbed. You see, at UFC 167, George St-Pierre did not beat Johnny Hendricks, but rather he lost the fight decisively, and the Nevada State Athletic Commission gave him the decision. You see, I put $4 million down on Johnny Hendricks, and I lost it all. I lost 2 of it, actually, but still, George St-Pierre owes me money. George St-Pierre owes me his life. And George St-Pierre, I will get it back.
That was actually my favorite Bringing the Jew to You ever. Holy shit. Yeah, are you still with us here? You there, Yao? Did Yao die?
I am here.
Yo, sorry to keep you late. I know it's getting late over on the East Coast, but you know we were able to roll out Bringing the Jew to You. I actually want to do a quick abbreviated no music version of Yao's training log. How has training been going? What weight are you fighting Alan at? And yeah, how is all of that?
Training's going well. You know, it's getting harder and harder, which is expected. You know, the constant competition. You know, everyone's trying to get to the top. Yes, I am fighting Alan on December 7th at 162 pounds.
Yep, and if you do want to listen to the conference call, that'll be tomorrow, Wednesday, the 27th, on the Final Round podcast, and the fight itself will be streamed live worldwide on Ustream, December 7th. It is going to be a doozy, to say the least, an NAACP production. Yeah. Sort of talk, you know, you've been talking about this new diet you're on. Mike Dulce is known for the Dulce diet, but I've heard through the grapevine that you're sort of subscribing to a different kind of diet.
Yes, I'm on a diet my manager actually introduced me to. You know, I have one of the best managers in the game, Ramses from the Wardner Street Podcast. Follow him at the Aunt Jimmy Show on Twitter. But yes, I am on the anti-Dolce diet, and it's been working out very, very well for me.
What does the anti-Dolce diet entail?
Look up the Dolce diet, and it's the complete opposite of that.
So does that mean you avoid the foods he says to eat? Are you just eating all, like, you know, because I think the Dolce diet is sort of a spin-off of the paleo diet. It's centered around staying away from complex grains like, you know, bread and stuff, and sort of trying to keep it to lean meat and vegetables and fruit. You know, or are you just going crazy with bread and candy? What is going on?
Basically, you eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and that's it.
Now, I am hearing rumors that Giorgio Petrosian was on the anti-Dolce diet before he got viciously knocked out by Andy Risti at Glory 12. Just made him look like a baby. He was dead on the mat. Was Giorgio on the anti-Dolce diet?
No, he was not. He actually suffered from a broken hand in the first round that hindered his performance.
Oh, that
he will be back. He will be back, and he will defeat Andy Risti in the rematch. Yeah,
the broken hand. I'm actually looking at the picture now of Risti walking away from the limp body of Giorgio Petrosian, and that broken hand really explains it. Actually, all joking aside, you and me had a ballin' ass weekend. Friday, I was ringside for RFA 11. Saturday, you were ringside for Glory 12 at Madison Square Garden. How fucking was that, man?
Oh, it was amazing. Probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. I really enjoy the fight atmosphere, you know. being around fighters and promoters and fans, bloodthirsty fans. And it was amazing, seeing all these kickboxers. It's such an international sport. You have guys from all over the world coming and competing under one roof. So it was amazing. And I'm definitely looking forward to it in the future, going to, future events.
You mentioned you saw current UFC middleweight champion Chris Weidman and current multi-boxing champion Floyd Mayweather Jr. Did you get a chance to say anything to either man?
No, I actually didn't. I really, really, really wanted to meet and greet with Floyd. He's one of my idols. Seriously, somebody I idolize. I did have a chance to meet and greet with Chris Weidman, but I decided not to. Decided to stay in my seat, and I'll just watch him on December 28th.
That's right. You hear the Ross bell going off in disapproval, and it's probably good. Actually, I was speaking with Mr. Weidman in Vegas. The first thing he has said, "Oh, Jake Ross, awesome show. I love the MMA podcast. Just tell that Yao kid if I ever catch him at MSG or in New York or even in Vegas, tell him to run." So it's probably good that you pussied out of saying anything to a Weidman. Finally, before we get back on topic and close this show out, you did get a chance, because I like to Facebook stalk you and touch myself to your pictures, you did get a chance to meet up with boxing legend Evander Holyfield. How was that? I think you might be muted.
It's horrible, apparently.
Yeah, we cannot hear you. So either you muted or you fell asleep or something.
No, can you hear me now? Yes, you can.
Yes.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was great. I had a nice little conversation with him. It was loud. It was kind of hard to hear, but I just talked, about fighting in general and the mental game to it and a few other things. But it was great. To meet someone like that is a really good feeling. And I met his daughter also.
She hot?
No comment.
Damn,
She's
so
very young. Very, very young.
Can we confirm the fact that you hooked up with his underage daughter?
I don't believe she's underage. I believe she's older than me. But I cannot confirm or deny that.
She's actually 14. She has the opposite of what Alan is. She, like, Alan looks like he's in his teens when he's really in his 20s. This chick was straight up 14.
He must have more than one.
Nope, just one.
I'm pretty sure
Nope.
He has more than one.
I'm staring at his autobiography that he wrote yesterday, and
Yesterday.
The Bells actually have been wrong, saying that he only has one.
So moving on, the Bells have been wrong. Let's close this podcast off. That has probably, for me, just been the weirdest podcast we've ever done, simply because of the fact that I usually have audio repeaters up. I have the stream going. I have, the recording going. I have the soundboard, everything. I've literally just been staring at my phone this entire time. This has been really odd. Also looking at gay porn. Let's get to these top three fights. Obviously, the lightweight fight between number 5 Gray Maynard and number 8 Nate Diaz, as far as the UFC rankings go. We also have 2 Ultimate Fighter championships at bantamweight and at women's bantamweight. Let's start off with the one we know about: Chris Holdsworth taking on the Brit David Grant. in a bantamweight match. I think this is going to be really close, even though I am rooting for Team Housey, Haunted Housey. I think Chris Holdsworth is going to win it. You know, both men have shown that they definitely have what it takes grappling, but I think Holdsworth is just a step above, wins the Tough 18 Men's Championship. What do y'all think?
I agree. I think Chris Holdsworth is a fantastic grappler, and I think he will once again fulfill his prophecy and submit Davy Grant. That's nothing against Davy Grant. He's a solid fighter, and he's training with great people down with Ronda Rousey and co. But I think Holdsworth's jiu-jitsu is incredible. I think he's a very well-rounded fighter, and I think he's someone who, with a little more time, could very well make an impact, such as a Michael Chiesa in the division. So,
I'm actually going with Grant in the upset. You know, everyone likes to talk about Chris Holdsworth's jiu-jitsu, and I don't think it's necessarily that good, but that these other guys' jiu-jitsu is that bad. So, you know, when you take those two things into account, Chris is going to submit them, you know. But, yeah, I'm going with Grant for the upset.
Going for Davy Grant, Team Rousey. We don't really know who is going to fight in the women's tournament until tomorrow when Jessica Rakoczy and Raquel Pennington face off. But let's just talk about the woman who has cinched up her spot, Juliana Pena. Do you think she has what it takes to win the Ultimate Fighter? I honestly think that the winner of Rakoczy versus Pennington will move on. I think Pennington is a more well-rounded fighter than Pena, and I think Rakoczy is a better boxer than Pena. Pena, I've said it before, she's the Leonard Garcia of women's bantamweights. She sort of just goes out there, swings wild, leaves herself open a lot, not just to get hit, but to be taken down and out grappled. We've seen a lot of shockers. A lot of people we thought would win the Ultimate Fighter get eliminated. There's no clear-cut favorite now, but I really don't see Pena winning the championship. What about you guys?
Yeah, I think she shits the bed also. I just don't think she's that good, and I think she ends up getting exposed in this fight. I think she is a bitch. I don't like her. I will just flat out say it. Juliana Pena, I don't like you. I think you're a bitch. And I cannot wait to see you get knocked out by Raquel Pennington or Jessica Rakoczy. Yao, what do you think?
Really quickly, Yao. I love the scene where she's like standing in the bedroom for like 10 minutes, blow drying her hair, and then her teammate's like, "Yeah, can you like maybe not be as loud?" "What do you mean loud? I'm not loud." You blow dry your hair all the time, like in the room. "What? I never do it." Like, you were just doing it. I wasn't the biggest fan of Juliana, the Venezuelan vixen Pena either. Yao, what do you think?
I'm actually, it's really hard for me to look at WMMA and make predictions. And, when it comes to WMMA, I only think of one person, and that's Jessica I, the pound-for-pound best female fighter on planet Earth. And, I really have no prediction for this fight.
Ross, can I get a bell of approval for Jessica I? Hell yeah, Jessica I. I don't know if I would call her the women's number one pound for pound quite yet, but she's definitely making her a mark. I am really interested. She moved up from 125. Could she possibly fight at 115? And if she, if she does, I think all of us would agree she would dominate. Really quickly, before we talk about Maynard Diaz, Jessica I, could she make 115, Ross?
I hope not. she'd probably feel like shit, like absolute shit. So no, she cannot make 115.
Yeah, it's definitely one thing if you're moving down 10 pounds and you're, a guy who's pretty big. Moving down 10 pounds for a chick who's already that small is a big deal. Yeah, you think I would ever make 115 and be able to fight in this new division that we heard would be established soon by Dana White on the Fighter and the Kid podcast, which is one of my favorite new podcasts out there.
I'm not really sure, It all depends on I'm not really sure. When it comes to females and cutting weight, I know they don't cut a whole lot of weight. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I do like her at 125 though. She's faster than everybody at 135.
Word up. And we are moving on to the last topic of what for me has been the most bizarre podcast in history. So really, really quick, Ross, you know what? Fuck it. Let me get some bells of approval while I hit this. That's right, motherfuckers. Gray Maynard taking on Nate Diaz. The younger 28-year-old Diaz has lost his last two fights, but, they have been against very sound fighters, against Benson Henderson, who was the longtime lightweight champ, and Josh Thompson, who was given the most recent title shot to face the man who took his belt, Anthony Pettis. He is taking on a aging bully. I don't want to say he's old yet, but he's getting up into that mid-30s range. He's 34. In his last four fights, he's 1-2-1. He beat Clay Guida in a fight that all of us were very glad to see him win. That was the fight where Guida pretty much ran from Maynard for the entire fight. I actually saw Guida. There's a sidebar. I saw him at the House of Blues at the Joey Diaz, Ari Shafir show, fall 2012. It was like a few months after. Guida wasn't interacting with fans, and I think part of that was he probably got a lot of shit for it. He quickly went from a fan favorite to a much maligned fighter in the UFC, and is going back to a Gray. Guida was his one win. Obviously, he had the loss and the draw back-to-back fights against Frankie Edgar for the UFC championship at UFC 125 and 136, and in his most recent fight, lost to TJ Grant, which actually I hadn't noticed it until right now. But both men, their last loss gave the guy who beat them a title shot. When Grant beat Maynard, he got a title shot. That was the UFC lightweight title eliminator fight at UFC 160 this past May. Diaz versus Thompson. I don't know if Diaz would have gotten a title shot. It probably wasn't a title eliminator match because Diaz had just a few months before really gotten handled by Bindo. But these are a couple of guys who it's going to be wild. Whoever loses is going to be in a bad spot, and for the caliber that both men are at, this is going to be a very interesting fight. Maynard, the wrestler, he's shown he has some powerful striking, though. Diaz, sort of like his brother, is a very good boxer, doesn't necessarily throw that knockout punch, but will just beat you to death with all those 50% strikes. He doesn't have the wrestling that Maynard has, but has jiu-jitsu for miles. I don't know if I'd want to be fighting Nate Diaz on his back. This is a very interesting match. Who do you guys got and why?
This match is so intriguing in so many ways. One, you have two guys who just a few years ago were the top of the division and were fighting each other. Now here we are. Both guys have hit a rough patch. More so Nate Diaz, though. Nate is in a worse off position because he did not find success at 170. He cannot make 145, so 155 is his stuck home. It's the place where he's found the most success. and he's on a 2-fight losing streak. So to be on a 2-fight losing streak is bad. To be fighting Gray Maynard in your 3rd fight on that 2-fight losing streak, it's even worse. Because Gray Maynard is just a problem for any man, no matter what. He's a great wrestler with great power. It's gonna ruin your night most times, and it has. But recently, he's hit a rough patch. So, as far as Nate Diaz goes, sure, his 2 losses are to Ben Henderson and Josh Thompson, but they're losses. And when you start losing, when it rains, it pours, man. When you start losing, you are just going to continue to lose. It happens. Now, do I think he's going to lose? No. Actually, I think he's going to win. I think he's going to beat Gray Maynard. I thought he won their 2nd fight, you could say. They had the tough fight, which I guess first fight really is what it is, but I'll call it 2nd for the UFC's sake. I thought Nate won the 2nd fight, which means he won the 1st and 2nd fight in my eyes. And I think he wins the 3rd fight. I think Nate kind of has his number in a sense. I think Nate knows how to beat him. I think he was robbed of the decision last time, and I think Nate will win, not even a decision. I think he will actually finish this fight. I think he gets a TKO late in the fight, 3rd round maybe. It's an interesting one. It's an exciting one. It'll be fun. The winner moves back into relevance in the lightweight division, while the loser really is in a horrible, horrible spot for their career. Retirement, maybe, in their future if they lose this one. I know Gray is getting up there in age. He's about 34 now. Nate, he's still relatively young, but I mean, if you're going to lose 3 straight and you can't find success at a weight class bigger than you, or you can't even get to the weight class that's lower than you, it really poses problems. So I think Nate gets it done. I think he's in a worse position, and I think he pulls it off. Plus, he's training with Team Alpha Male, and we know the success that they're having. So if you're training with Team Alpha Male and you're backed into a corner and you've already beaten this guy before, arguably twice, you should walk away with the victory the 3rd time.
Yeah, this fight, let me just start off by saying Gray Maynard was in one of my favorite fights of all time, and that was Gray Maynard versus Clay Guida. So I will always have a spot in my heart for him, and I am pulling for him in this fight against Nate Diaz. I do like Nate Diaz a lot, but I really, really want Gray Maynard to win this fight. I think he knocks out Nate Diaz. You know, Josh Thompson was able to TKO Nate Diaz. So, and Gray Maynard hits very, very hard, like a truck, as GSP would say. So, I think Gray Maynard finishes Nate Diaz.
Damn, Gray Maynard over Nate Diaz is the pick from Yao the Truth. I think Gray wins too, even though I am a fan of the Diaz brothers. I probably will be rooting for Nate. Maynard's wrestling and his striking, he is dangerous. I actually thought he would beat Grant to get that title shot earlier in the year. Maynard, he is aging, but the only reason I note that is because he's always going to be floating around and be in that talk about who's fighting for the title at lightweight, because he is such a strong opponent. That does it for the MMA podcast. I will add music in the background and post for all you motherfuckers listening on iTunes and YouTube. But really quickly, Ross, Yao, where do we find you on the Twitters and anywhere else for that reason? Not everybody all at once.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Yao_the_truth. That's YAO_the_truth. And subscribe on YouTube at Yao the Truth, no underscore.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this Wednesday night, like I said it earlier in the broadcast, like Jake alluded to before, if you want to catch the most must-see conference call in the history of conference calls, you will tune into the final round Wednesday night, 12 a.m. Eastern Time, technically Thursday, but we won't tell anyone. Necroma versus Hamilton, hosted by the NAACP. It's going to be the most amazing thing you have ever seen. It's going down December 7th, but the media call goes down on Wednesday. See you there. I will bring candy for all of you. Find me on Twitter, at Ross Finkelstein, for more details. E before the L.
I love it, son. Thank you for listening to the MMA Podcast. We will be back next Monday. Happy Thanksgiving, and enjoy it. Like I said, call up a friend, call up a family member. Just tell them you love them, you're thankful for them, because that's one of really the truest keys to being happy. You just got to be thankful for what you got. You know, so many people have it so much worse. We got serious for a minute. Follow all of our buddies on Twitter, at The Aunt Jimmy Show, at C. Lowenstein, at MMA Mental, at Sweet Pappy Jones. Shout out to Eddie Bravo and Smoke Serpent for the Jiu-Jitsu song. We love the shit out of you, and I personally am thankful for all the positive shit we get, all the Twitter followers, the YouTube comments. It is shockingly so positive. We love it. I love doing it. I love talking about MMA with you motherfuckers. Call in Monday nights. We love the shit out of you, and I am thankful for each and every one of you. We gone.
With our science, silencing all these idiots caught up in all their ignorance. Two clans fighting under the same banner. We all got love for this ground game, and that's all that matters.